I want to start off by saying thank you to Thad for last week covering for me. I do appreciate it. You did a great job. I was able to watch it online and still feel like we were able to worship with you all. If you all weren't here last week, I technically got sick, I guess, and wasn't allowed to be around other people for a while. That was irritating. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like that very much. When you're a people person, not being around other people is not enjoyable. So I am so glad to be back. As we've been working through our readings every week, and I had a couple different options for a sermon this week. I could go in some in depth with the law in Leviticus, which I knew you all would really enjoy, or I thought maybe we'd turn it around a little bit different, and we'd do out of our Acts text that we've been reading on, and look in through Acts as we've been going through, and look at a character that's there that I think really says a lot about us and should really teach us some things this morning. So we're going to be looking at Barnabas a little bit today and what an encourager he was. And I don't know about you guys, but I like getting notes of encouragement. I think those are wonderful. We don't seem like we get them near enough. And a good encouraging word goes a long way. And sometimes we don't always remember how important encouragement is until we don't have it. Okay, if you've ever played in sports or anything like that, for the longest time when I was playing sports, I truly believed that the purpose of a cheerleader was to get on your nerves while you're trying to play sports. I thought for sure that was their job, was to just be that screeching sound. And my favorite, not really, was when we wrestled. We had these things called mat maidens, and down south they would slap the mat doing the cheers. And you have to understand, when you're wrestling, if you hear the mat slap, that means you got pinned. And that's not good. And they're over there going, dude, hitting their little rhythms. And I'm just going, could you please stop? But you know what I realized later on? Is when you go somewhere and you have nobody there to cheer and nobody to tell you that you're doing a good job, how lonely it is, even whenever you're trying to do something. Can you imagine the idea of doing something really great and having that moment where you're going, did you? Oh, yeah, there's nobody there to cheer me on. Oh, yeah, that was great. Can you imagine Jake playing ball and not a single fan out there? I mean, you still play. That's fun. But it's a lot better when the stands are full, when you knock one out and you hear the cheer. It's all the different. It's encouraging. And so when we think about this idea of encouragement, it's important to us that we have people in our lives that are encouraging. I found a couple of quotes that I thought were really good for encouragement that I want to share with you all as we kind of get into this mindset. Martin Luther King Jr. said this: "If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way." That's an encouraging note, isn't it? If I'm not meant to do incredible, great things, I can do a lot of small things really great. Right? Helen Keller said, "Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Having a good outlook on life is how you are successful." My favorite, though encouraging word is, "I believe in you." And I believe in unicorns. Mostly you. Isn't that nice? Doesn't that make you feel good when you hear that? I love the idea of being encouraged. Let me introduce you to a couple of little girls. Kylie and Brielle. Kylie and Brielle were twin babies. They were born prematurely at 2 pounds each. Kylie did really well. Kylie had full color, heart was doing well, was able to take everything really well, but her sister Brielle was not. Brielle was probably not going to make it. And no matter what they did, Brielle was not getting any better. They wrapped her in the warm blankets. They had her mom hold her skin to skin, dad hold skin to skin. They were desperately trying to figure out what it was going to take to jumpstart this baby so that she would be receptive and start growing. And no matter what they did, nothing worked. And finally, against all policies back in 1995, can you believe this? A nurse said, I don't care if it's against the rules or not. We're desperate. We got to do something. And she took Brielle and she put her in the incubator with Kyrie. And at the point that she puts Brielle with Kyrie, this newborn baby, reaches over and puts her hand on her sister and holds her sister with her hand. And literally at that point, the crying and the screaming from Brielle stops. And within a matter of minutes to hours, the color comes back into Brielle. She starts to look normal. Her heartbeat is no longer in the wrong way. And it was just the need of her sister's touch. Just the idea of encouragement, just the idea of knowing that she was not alone was all that she needed to make it in this world. Now Kyrie and Brielle are grown adults, just fine, still hip to hip, sister to sister. Sometimes we underestimate the importance of encouragement. Sometimes we don't always think about if it really makes that big of a deal if I send that quick text to tell somebody that I'm thinking about them. Sometimes we underestimate the idea of mailing out that card, even though nobody mails cards anymore. Right? Sometimes as we pick up the phone, we go, I should probably call her. Oh, it's too late. They're probably in bed already. Oh, it's too early. They're probably at work. They probably don't have time to. And we forget and we underestimate the importance of a that a boy. A good job. When was the last time that we stopped and sent a note or came up to someone after services were over and go, hey, thank you for that prayer? Boy, you did a great job handing out the food this week. It was wonderful the way that you did this project. Hey, I noticed how you've been working with your kids and how well they're doing. Hey, I can't thank you enough for teaching my children. What are the different ways that we can be an encourager? Barnabas was this incredible encourager, and I want to look through 3 different scriptures this morning that kind of shows you a little bit about him and some of the things we can kind of pick up from him. Starting in Acts 4, and it's a couple of different verses kind of broken apart. You need to understand this is the part where the church is a new formed church. They've been given the gospel, they've started a new community of believers, and they're all working together to make the church and they're grouped together into one unified body, taking care of one another. And it says, all the believers were in one heart and one mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions were their own, but they shared everything they had. Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostles called Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, sold a field he owned, and he brought the money and he put it at the apostles' feet. You look at this, and it starts off so simply that here's just a guy that the apostles go, man, that guy's an encourager. Think about it. Who's someone that you know that you like it when they're there? They're probably an encourager. Who do you know that you love to have around because when they're around, you leave feeling like you're a better person no matter what happens? Who's the one that says, hey, we'll get them next time? Who's the one that says, I believe in you? You can do it, right? Do you remember the commercial that was out just a few years ago to where you could write a note on a Rice Krispie treat? Do you remember that? And they showed the parents going, hey, you're awesome, or something like that, and they stuck it in a lunchbox, and the kid's like, oh, wow, I got a note on my Rice Krispie treat. What a novel concept. You know, they actually sell little notepads for parents, if you all didn't notice, parents, that are encouraging notepads that you can write a little message along with it and stick it in your kid's lunchbox every day if you wanted to give them those encouraging notes, because we've realized that it's important for people to be able to hear that. And what we see in Barnabas is that he is truly going through and doing what he's been taught. The church is of one mind and one body, and they don't want anybody not to have things. And Barnabas, who is a Jewish leader who has, you need to understand the backdrop in this when it says he owned land, he had possessions, he was from Cyprus. They're saying he is a Jewish leader that is wealthy. And he takes what he has and he sells it and he brings it before the other apostles and said, this is for the ministry of helping other people. And the apostles, when they thought of Joseph, they said, no, that's Barnabas. That's the encourager. And they literally changed his name because of the way that he is. Why would he do something like that? Maybe, just maybe, he's actually living out what Jesus was teaching. Look at Matthew 19. In Matthew 19, we have a story to where a young man comes up to Jesus and he asks him, what do I need to do to be a good follower of you? What do I need to do to be the right kind of person for you, Christ? And he says, why do you ask me what is good? Jesus replied, there's only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments. And remember, he says, I've done all those things. What else? In 21, Jesus answers this way. If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me. And here's Barnabas in Acts 4, who literally lives out this scripture. He literally takes and he sells his land. He sells his things. He gives it wholeheartedly without any reservation for God's work to take care of those in need. And he changes his entire lifestyle and everything he does, as we see later on. And it brings me to my first point. A true encourager not only learn it, but they live it. A real encourager is not one that just kind of throws words out haphazardly. They live it. They're not an encourager for the moment. It's just who they are. It's who they strive to be. And when they say it, you know that they mean it. You ever had somebody say something to you and you know they don't mean it at all? Wow, you really played a great game. You're like, were you watching the same game that I was playing? Because I didn't play a great game. But there's that an encourager, even if you didn't play well, can say, hey, you know what? I saw when you did this, and that was really good. And even though we've not had a great day, that encourager can encourage us to do more and to be more. And they can see the value in us sometimes when we don't even see it ourselves. And Barnabas was that kind of encourager. He not only learned what it is to be a Christian, he lived it out every day. And for us to become encouragers and to be a Barnabas in this church, we actually have to live it out. It can't be something that we talk about. It's something that we actually need to do. It makes us better. It makes our church better. And we need to understand that so many times we look at the church and we look at people who are influential in the church as the ones who are the Pauls and the Peters, who are the up front, who say all the big things, who do all the big stuff, who show big on the sun. They're bigger than life. But when you look in the scriptures in Acts, Barnabas was saving souls. Barnabas was growing the church. And we don't ever read about his incredible sermons. We never read about his influential, powerful moments with the crowds. But the scriptures do talk about how he helped grow the church in so many different ways. In Acts 11:22 through 24, it says, news of this reached the church in Jerusalem. They sent out Barnabas to Antioch. When he arrived and saw what grace of God had done, he was glad and encouraged them all to remain true to the Lord with all their hearts. He was a good man, full of the Holy Spirit and faith, and a great number of people were brought to the Lord. Barnabas goes and he sees what's going on in the church in Antioch. He was sent to check it out. When he gets there, he doesn't just go, "Oh man, they're doing good." He encourages them. Keep on going. Good job. Hold true to the faith. You can do it. I know you're being persecuted right now, but you're doing a great job. Share your faith. I know not everyone understands, but God believes in you. I believe in you. You're making it happen. And because of his encouragement, because of his motivation, look what it says. A great number of people were brought to the Lord. I don't read in there where Barnabas got up in front of 2,000 people and spoke this incredible sermon. And everyone changed because of the words that he spoke. But I do read that his encouragement changed the world. What's really crazy about Barnabas is if you put in this other part of it, you start to deduct and reason that more than likely, Barnabas knew who Saul was before Saul became Paul. Barnabas was a Jewish leader. Saul was working and prestigious with the Jews as well. Barnabas is converted. Saul is converted. The other apostles are terrified of Saul because they know who he was as Saul. And yet, who is it that comes in and gives them a chance? It's Barnabas. And what we find in there is that encouragers look for ways to lift others up. An encourager will look for the opportunity, the way to make somebody else and lift them up. Have you done that lately? Have you taken the time to try to find where somebody else is doing something right? Have you had your head on a swivel this week? And maybe it's something we do this week. Look for somebody around you and see what good things they are doing. Man, it is so easy for us to tell people what they're doing wrong, isn't it? Man, I can point out a fault in a second. I can tell you anything wrong with you if you want. I'm good. But that doesn't build anybody up. The encourager is one that actually looks at somebody and goes, wow, look at the value in that. And sometimes I need encouragement, don't you? I need that person to see value in me when I don't see it in myself. I need somebody to believe in me when I don't believe in myself. Because no matter how strong I am as a Christian, there are moments when I'm weak. There are moments whenever I don't know if it's making a difference or not. Maybe you've been there too. There are moments I feel like I'm banging my head up against the wall and no one cares. And those are the moments whenever the Barnabases in this world make all the difference. Acts 15:36 through 39 says, sometime later, Paul said to Barnabas, and in the situation we're in here is that Paul and Barnabas go through and they're working together. They're doing things together. They're spreading the gospel. They've gone on these journeys together. And they're coming to a part where they're going to have a little bit of an issue. And I want you to see it. Sometime later, Paul said to Barnabas, let us go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we preach the word of the Lord and see how they're doing. He says, Barnabas, let's go back and encourage people. Now, you would think that Barnabas is all over that, right? You better believe it. I'm all about that. I like the encouragement. Barnabas wanted to take John, also called Mark, with them. But Paul did not think it was wise to take him because he had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not continued with them in the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. Barnabas took Mark and sailed for Cyprus. But Paul chose Silas and left, commended by the believers to the grace of the Lord. We have a situation here where we have two people. We have a very dynamic, outgoing, charismatic preacher in Paul. We have this very consistent encourager who has been there for Paul, who has believed in Paul when nobody else would believe in Paul, who lifted him up, who walked with him hand in hand. And in the midst of them going through, we have a third party in John Mark that for whatever reason, had a hard time. And he left in the middle of a journey. We have Paul, who is skeptical. And once a guy does that, he's always going to do that. Can't count on this guy for anything. I don't want him coming with us. No way, no how. He's just going to flake on us one more time. And you have Barnabas who says, hey, we need to give people second chances. He's still a good guy. God still sees value in him. I think it's really ironic that Saul, who was this guy who was persecuting Christians, who was locking people up and beating them and everything else, who Christ gives him a second opportunity to change who he was, looks at this guy and says, no way, no how, I can't trust him, Isn't that weird? Thank God we have Barnabases in this world, isn't it? How many of us would not be where we are if we didn't have Barnabases around? See, and encouragers don't dwell on past mistakes. Encouragers offer second chances. And as a church, we need to be a church of Barnabases. That people can come inside of our building, people can come and be a part of this family, and no matter what has happened in their past, we can look past the past, we can see the future, and we can see the value in somebody. Even if they've let us down. Well, Brian, but what if they were in the church and they really messed up? I mean, what if they really let us down as a church? What if they said some things and they did some things and they were not kind to people at the church and we don't want them back because the problem they gave us before? Can we not see the value in them? God calls for us to be Barnabases. That even though people have made mistakes, there's still value. Not that we may not always agree. The beautiful part about it is that as you go later on in Paul's other writings, he acknowledges Barnabas and talks about the good man that he is after all this is said and gone. After the bad blood of this goes on, Paul realizes, as he's had a chance to cool down, that Barnabas is a good guy. He didn't always see things the way that Paul does, but he's a good guy who believes in people, just like he believed in John Moore. And as a church, we want to do that as well. We'll leave you this quote as we finish out. William Arthur Ward says, flatter me and I may not believe in you. Criticize me and I may not like you. Ignore me and I may not forgive you. If you encourage me, I'll never forget you. You want to know why people come to church? They don't really care if they come back or not. Flatter me, not always going to believe it. Criticize me, I'm not going to like you. Ignore me, may not forgive you. But if you encourage me, I'll never forget it. We want to make a difference. Before somebody leaves this building today, encourage them. Make them feel like they want to be here because you want them to be here. No matter what their circumstances are, we want you here. We see the value in who you are, even when you don't see it in yourself. You are a child of God. Christ saw the value in you when he died on the cross for you. Christ saw all the wrong things that you and I have done, and he still said that we were worth it. If my Savior thinks that you're worth it, I think you are too. I hope you feel the same way. This morning, if we can help you, if we can pray for you, if we can help give you some encouragement, if we can hold your hand and just be with you in your time of struggle, let us do that. Please don't walk out this building today and not feel like anybody cares, because we do. Your God does. He's commissioned us to be there for each other. We are his hands, we are his feet, we are his heart. Let us be that for you this morning. If we can help you in any way, would you allow us to do that as we stand and as we sing?